1, 2, 3, 4. I got thoughts running through my head. I got thoughts, can't you see? I got thoughts, the books I read. I got thoughts, won't you listen to
Now, on the way back from Maine, Jack gets a call from an ADA in Wilmington, Gene Malden, I believe is the name I gave him, who wants him to bring him in as a consult on a case. And this is the case of Allison and Todd Martell. Specifically, Allison Martell, who has drowned her children in the bathtub because she believes they are demons. And so Jack, clearly this case required a forensic psychologist. It was one of those things, once she confessed, the ADA's like, okay, we'll get a forensic psychologist in here and let's make sure she's sane. And Malden also says that he called him in so quickly because one of his legal secretaries, paralegals or something, is a distant cousin, and had left the religious order or the church that this lady and her husband went to because she felt it was getting a little culty. So Malden kind of says to a favor, you're out of this case, but I'll get a psychologist in, and since she's your cousin, I know we'll see what we can do. If she's sane, if she's legally sane, then there's not really much you can do. She confessed, she got to go to jail. But if she's not legally sane, then she gets out of jail, she gets to an asylum or to a mental hospital, to a mental facility where she can be treated. So Jack comes in the case and middle of the night, early morning, gets back into Wilmington and goes straight to the victim and to the mother's house, to Allison Martell's house, or the Martell house, and begins to look around, wants to see the place has been cleared forensically, so he can go in and look however he wants. And he goes in, and through the first couple of books, I've kind of made a point of Jack not emotionally responding too much to things that have happened, things that are around him, to the loss of Sarah or potential loss of Sarah. And in this case, I wanted to make painfully clear that while he may have been able to, cut that off for a little bit, it ain't gone away. It's just built up. And as he comes in and sees the hallway full of family portraits, he loses it. He breaks down. He starts to recognize that he and Sarah had talked about having children, but they had never had children yet. Probably because of the idea, we'll have time. We're young. Jack, at the time of the books, Jack is in his late 30s. So there's still time. This is not, like in my parents' time when you had your kids by 25 and then you really live the rest of your life. That's kind of changed now. People are having babies, older. And so Jack and his wife had not yet had a baby because they're both very focused on their careers. And it begins to wear on him that that may never happen. I may never have children with Sarah because she may be dead. And so that kind of overwhelms him for a little bit. And one little aside about the hallway with the pictures, I always picture my mom's hallway because when I was a kid, and this is a very 70s, 80s thing, every year we got dragged down to either Sears or Olin Mills for a family portrait. And I hated it. Oh my God, it was such a pain in the ass because you got to get in your Sunday best, and you have to sit there for an hour waiting, or 2 hours, because it was usually a long line when we did it, and then you get in there and you have to sit still. And I was not one as a kid who was going to sit still. So if you ever get a chance to see it in my family portraits that my mom's hung up in the hallway, that ain't a smile, or that's a forced smile, because I've already been thumped on the ear by my dad, said, straighten up, or his best, my favorite phrase of his was, you're overloading your ass, which means you're about to step on a line, and when you get past that line, it's ass whooping time. Because yeah, I was spanked as a child, obviously. That was the South in the 70s and 80s, and probably even in some cases today, you got spanked. Well, I'm not going to debate the particulars of whether that's right or not. I'm just stating the fact. So the hallway is kind of my mom's hallway. It's these rows and rows of family portraits, and of course he can see as he goes down the portraits. She had 5 kids, and you can tell the timeline of the kids. There wasn't no stopping. It was kid. So they were popping them out left and right. It was the quiverful type of folks, that say, for God we have to propagate like friggin' bunnies. The quiverful people is, let's create more Christian soldiers. So they were those type of Christians, and so Jack can see that they've been having kids steady, and he gets to the examination and notices on the inside of the bathtub where the kids were all drowned in the bathtub after she gave them sedatives and milk and made them go to sleep. And around the edges of the bathtub, drawn in what looks like crayon, are the runes. The runes that he begins to recognize as the runes on the Metal Black album, the runes on the stones that George Baxter had and the Haynes kids had, and that were drawn in blood in place of these murders. So clearly, this has no connection. This cannot have any connection to the Haynes kids, George Baxter, none of that. And yet somehow it does. And it connects back to him. Jack is now on another case where these runes have appeared, and he can't figure out for the life of me why they would appear, especially if you're thinking of the runes, a murderer in West Virginia kills someone, scrapes these runes on, carves these runes on his killing implements, and writes it in blood on the wall. 2 kids in Quitman perform what might as well be considered a satanic ritual almost, because music, this death metal music, told them to, which you would think was a satanic ritual or whatever. How can that have any connection to a super religious godfather family in Delaware killing her children? And the only other connection Jack could possibly think of is that, okay, the Haynes kids were teenagers and down into 6 and 7 years old, but they weren't just children; they were servitors. They were these 6-eyed monsters, shape-shifting monsters, who posed as children and claimed to be refreshing the seals for keeping the sleeper asleep and from destroying the world. So immediately Jack has to start thinking of, what's the connection? What are these children? I'm definitely taking this case because it's too strange not to. It's too many coincidences not to. Jack Carter first meets Allison Martell in the jail, in the interrogation room, and begins to ask her about the case, about her children. She's barely lucid. Clearly has already had some kind of altercation in the jailhouse, and I make pains to mention that oftentimes, and this is something I've heard from, did jury duty, and a guard who worked at the local prison told me, if you're messing with kids, if you're in there because you mess with kids, not even not even the cons on the block like your ass. You got to watch your back doubly so, because they do not like when you mess with kids. And I would imagine in women's jail and among women, it's probably even worse. So Allison has a black eye, has bruising, has clearly had some abuse there. And he asked her about it, and it's not the guard. She says not the guards. she intimates this to people around her. So he begins to start asking her about her children. And, what little he can gather from her is that, yes, she thought her children were demons. And she's super religious about that. And, he finds out a little bit more about her church. He also finds out that despite, that she's had 5 kids, after every single pregnancy, she has gone through a significant bout with postpartum depression. And this is something that women, unfortunately, suffer through a lot. And luckily in the last, I guess, 5-10 years, there's really been a concerted effort to try to, do something about that and not just say, oh, you'll get over it. This is just a typical, woman being emotional. No, we're actually hopefully listening to women now when they talk about issues with depression, especially postpartum depression. Because again, postpartum depression women can die from it because they kill themselves or, they just, it's horrible. It's very strong. And I'm going to get on a soapbox here for a minute. We have people like the fucking Scientologists, and if you're a Scientologist, will stop being one, who say that women shouldn't get drugs to deal with postpartum depression. Well, fuck you, because if the drugs help, then they help, and your religion shouldn't stop someone from being able to get help to at least even themselves out, rather than live in this horrible state of depression that can be treatable. And the same goes for, to me, any religion. I'm all about body as a temple and not trying to take not trying to take just a drug, I don't feel good, so I'm just going to take a drug. And then my happy pills keep me happy. I'm not about that. But there's clearly evidence that there are chemical triggers, biochemical triggers, that cause depression and I don't know if schizophrenia maybe, but, bipolar disorder, postpartum, and things like that, that can be treated with drugs. I don't think it should be just the first, you walk in the door and they hand you a box of pills. But nobody's religion should infringe upon someone being able to live a normal fucking life where you're not constantly depressed all the time and you're not constantly in this state of paralysis, essentially emotional paralysis. So, and I'm going to get on my soapbox about religion further on in this one because that's one of the main themes of the book. Hi, how you doing? Welcome to the whatever this is.